Oh man, this is the episode. This is the episode I've been waiting to make. This is my top 15 albums of 2024. I got a margarita with me. Keep my voice crisp. Make sure it's crisp. I don't get dry, in this long episode. No, it's not going to be too long. But again, last episode I gave you my 30 through 16. This episode is my top 15 albums of 2024. And these, again, are my personal favorites. Doesn't mean that they're the best, the most well done, whatever. But these are my top. So number 15, Love the Ominous World by Blue and Exile. And I mentioned this one in my first episode. This is a hip-hop album. This is great soul beats with great rapping, conceptual and topical lyrics that paint pictures and provide imagery and storylines. There's also great R&B singer features. And Blue is just an incredible rapper, and Exile's production matches him great. I love this album. Josh actually texted me, too, saying, Josh, if you remember him from the Michael Kiwanuka review, if you listen to that one, go check that one out. But he's my good buddy, and he actually texted me saying, whoa, this Blue and Exile album, this is so good. So it's also Josh approved, so that's cool. And like I said, I mentioned it in my first one. I talked a little bit more about it then, so I'm going to move quickly through it. That was number 15, Love the Ominous World by Blue and Exile. Great hip-hop album. I also mentioned my number 14 in my first episode, but I didn't go much into it. I just kind of briefly mentioned it. And that is You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Knocked Loose. This is my hardcore metal album of the year. I don't know what it is about this album, but it is so heavy and full sounding, but also piercing because the singer and the lyrics are so intense. I really like the singer's voice, with his pitch being in the higher register for singers in this genre, and I like it a lot more than the growly stuff that you can hear in metal music, and it's honestly really impressive what he can do vocally. I also was really impressed by the drums. They do a lot of interesting variations in the rhythm, too, almost incorporating other genres into the beats while maintaining this fast-paced metal energy. Like the drum parts on The Calm That Keeps You Awake and Take Me Home actually use some auxiliary percussion, it sounds like. So it changes the vibe. It's really interesting to hear. And also on Don't Reach For Me, it gets into this really cool groove at points that doesn't even sound like metal music for a minute, besides the, screaming vocals. But Don't Reach For Me also has some great lyrics, pretty much calling out somebody for portraying divinity in the form of being religious, and essentially says, no lies can be spread from a tongue removed. I will cut off your tongue. Yeah, the lyrics are intense. Suffocate also has great lyrics about self-doubt and dwelling in mistakes made, which there are quite a few other lyrics on this album that are about not being able to get over painful experiences. Like on Piece by Piece, there's this loud declaration of, the pain I swallowed has been stuck in my throat. It's pretty incredible. I'm not doing it justice at all. It's really intense and great. And just the energy of this album is non-stop. It is just a perfect 27 minutes, 10 songs of full-blown, in-your-face, hardcore metal. More on the punk side of metal, so not death or black metal or any demonic shit. Just pissed off at the world and life lyrics. I don't know. I just kept putting this on, specifically when I would get off work. So I've been calling it my get out of work album because I like to get hyped and get it all out before I decompress at home. And this album just provided that to me. I played it a bunch, and don't get too scared when you listen to it. I'm okay. Don't worry. But it's pretty intense. Great album though. That is You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Knocked Loose at my number 14. All right. Like I said, I got a margarita. Let me get a little sip here. Thank you. All right, my number 13, Please Don't Cry by Rapsody. This is a hip-hop album. If you're not familiar with Rapsody, she's amazing. Incredible rapper. Anyway, this is a very introspective and personal album. But she talks mad shit as well. It feels true to the traditional rap. But she talks a lot about the pressures of being in the public eye and how it can get to you and also change you. She also talks about getting rich as well, and she's struggling to feeling like she deserves it, but doesn't want to lose her character, and wants to remain humble and grounded to the people in her life. So she acknowledges that she deserves this because she's worked hard, but she's also talking about resisting it and staying true to herself. So there's like a bit of conflict there, and she has lyrics such as like, "What status with no character? That mirror is gonna stare at me." Also thoughts about losing people and just caring about her people in general. I mean, there's a song where the entire topic is about a family member having Alzheimer's and dealing with that. She also talks about her sexuality, being bisexual, and people being in her business about it, just asking too many questions about it. And so, yeah, this is a very personal album. Her heart is displayed on this album. But as I mentioned, she also talks mad shit on this album. I mean, she said, if I went basic, I'd be in the Wraith. If I had a dick, I'd be the greatest in the debates. Essentially saying if she was a man, she would have more acclaim. Kind of calling out the sexism in the hip-hop industry, I suppose. And but she goes hard with the shit talking on parts on this. And over trap beats, too, which isn't her normal style. But she sounds amazing on them. I think she could do a whole EP of just her going hard on trap beats, and it would be fantastic. And I'm going to say it. This is probably the best rap album of the year. Now, I have other hip-hop albums higher in my list, because that's my list. But, you know, if I'm putting my critic hat on, you know, if I were the Grammys, I would give this the album of the year because it's very well done and cohesive and artistic and deep. The production is really well done, and she's really rapping on important and personal thoughts. But the only reason it's not, you know, my favorite hip-hop album of the year is just you got to be in the mood for it a little bit. That's the only reason. But I do think that this is fantastic and probably the most well-made hip-hop album of the year. And that is Rapsody with Please Don't Cry, number 13. Fabulous hip-hop album. Shout out to Rapsody. All right, number 12. I have Fearless Movement by Kamasi Washington. Kamasi Washington is a progressive jazz saxophonist and composer. And this new album sounds like the title, Fearless Movement. I mean, the drums just never stop ripping throughout. I love the sound of this album. The first half has more features of singers and rappers and a more mainstream sound on it. And even a couple songs that I kind of find to be duds, which are Computer Love and Get Lit, which is a bummer because Get Lit has George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic on it, which I was so excited for. And it's probably my least favorite song on the album. But anyways, I do really love the first two tracks, which are before those two duds, and Dream State with Andre 3000 actually on flute. I don't know if you knew this, but Andre 3 Stacks is now a flute musician. He's not doing rap, so whatever. And so the features in the first half give it some variety for people who don't want just straight jazz fusion music. But if you're like me, and you wanted just the straight jazz stuff, the second half is all that. It's like Kamasi gave you two sections here, with it being in total an hour and a half. You know, if you started in the middle, you still get a 45-minute album. So if you want just jazz, start this album on the track The Garden Path and just sit back and get ready to be transcended into another realm of sound. This album is triumphant. You can feel the title, Fearless Movement, towards something in life, maybe discovering yourself or finding freedom in some aspect. As there is a song on here called Road to Self, which is an epic 13-minute piece with improvisational solos from all kinds of instruments. There's also lines in the sand where the minimal vocals say, "Lines in the sand can't tell me what to think. Lines in the sand wash away so easily. I feel free." And that, to me, is the feeling of this album. Breaking free with fearless movement. Yeah, this album was really cool. Like I said, if you want just the jazz stuff, start in the second half. That's kind of what I do, to be honest. Because, the mainstream stuff is all right. But anyway, that's Fearless Movement by Kamasi Washington, jazz album. Progressive jazz, I should say. Fusion, craziness. It's not your traditional sounding jazz. All right. Number 11. With The Smile, the album is called Cutouts. The band is called The Smile. And this is kind of a double one. I'll explain to you what I mean. Members of Radiohead, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, started this band called The Smile. And so it has that alternative rock, but kind of sonically meditative vibe to it. If you're familiar with Radiohead, you might know what I mean. So it is relaxing yet interesting. And they released another album this year called Wall of Eyes. And I do like them both. But I will say I like Cutouts more because they are able to accomplish the ambient psychedelic sound while keeping it more upbeat and interesting throughout the album. Whereas Wall of Eyes is pretty slow through a lot of it. So Cutouts gets the technical 11 spot, but I did like the other album quite a bit too, so I'm including that link as well in the description. And with the slower ambient stuff on Wall of Eyes, I do like to put it on and sit outside and relax and look at the trees. It is psychedelic and vibrant. They go into these ambient interludes where the bass is subtly keeping this groove going and driving the song, and the vocals are kind of haunting and harmonizing in the background. But the more rockin' songs, so to speak, are my favorite. And both albums have that, though Cutouts has more. And so the more rockin' songs have these really cool sort of off-kilter guitar riffs with weird tones to them. For example, Read the Room and Under Our Pillows on Wall of Eyes are a couple of my favorites. And Zero Sum and Eyes and Mouth off Cutouts are a couple of my favorites as well. I found those guitar or keyboard riffs as well very interesting, and the layering of all the elements, all the string parts, piano, bass grooves, guitar riffs, these albums create a wall of sound and truly take you on a journey into the stratosphere. That's really how I describe it. Got a little poetic there. But yeah, it really is like that. And so that's number 11, Cutouts and Wall of Eyes by The Smile. Number 10, hip-hop album, CHROMAKOPIA by Tyler, Creator. And I talked about this pretty extensively on my third episode. So just want to reiterate that this is a very well-done hip-hop album with some wild and varying production and rap performances. Fun and entertaining listen all the way through. Go check out my episode 3 if you want to hear more about that album, and go check out that album. It's fabulous. Number 10, CHROMAKOPIA by Tyler, the Creator. All right, new one for you. Number 9, Funeral for Justice by Mdou Moctar. So Mdou Moctar, this is a Nigerian rock band, and I just thought this was so cool. I've never quite heard this kind of music so upbeat. I listen to other bands like this, like Tanarwin and Ali Farkaturi kind of has a similar sound, but never with the speed and tenacity of this band. I mean, it is almost to the pace and energy of punk music. And these guys are just jamming and doing really cool guitar riffs, and the drums are just constantly ripping throughout the whole album. I also like the chant-like vocal parts. It makes you kind of want to sing or chant along with them. The song Tacoba, third track, is my favorite song on this album, and honestly one of my favorite songs of the year. I think there was one day where I played it like 8 times in a row because I love the build-up, and they just slowly keep bringing the energy up, and that chanting vocal part I start singing along with, and the percussion is ripping. This album is awesome. It's such a cool sound. I will say that it doesn't deviate much from that sound, though, the main sound. It is pretty similar throughout, but I just love how it sounds, so I'll play this whole album for the whole experience, and yeah, this is great. This is Funeral for Justice by Mdou Moctar. All right, number 8. Samurai by Lupe Fiasco. Lupe Fiasco is one of my top rappers of all time, and if you didn't know, he's been on a run of great albums for almost 10 years now. I know everybody just knows him from his pop songs that gained popularity around 2010, but Lupe is so much more than those songs. I wish he hadn't put those out, to be honest, because he is a top-tier lyricist with so many crazy lines and flows. And he gets chill on this one and is just vibing and flowing, but calculated like a samurai. He's just like, wah, with the lines. He's just, it's so coded and calculated, and it's so good. Anyways, I love the chill jazzy beats on here, and he does some catchy hooks throughout as well. No features, just Lupe rapping and giving some cool hooks. Specifically, the hook on the song Cake was stuck in my head for days. That Cake and Number One Headband are probably my favorite tracks on the album. And I just love the vibe of this album. This is made for me. And he's so cool with the rhyme schemes on this. And I can repeat this album over and over again. It's a perfect vibe to me. 30 minutes long, sweet spot length, and not a bad track on there. Fabulous. Lupe Fiasco with Samurai. Please check this one out. All right. Number 7, Highway Prayers by Billy Strings. I talked about this one in some detail in my 3rd episode, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this is a fantastic bluegrass album with all the elements you want from bluegrass music. This album is fun and beautiful at times and impressive instrumentally. I love this album, and I've been playing it a bunch. I also bought it for my parents for Christmas because they were over. I kept playing it when they would come over, and they're like, who is this? And so I got it for them. And yeah, this album's incredible. Number 7, Highway Prayers by Billy Strings. All right, number 6. And you might be wondering when this one was going to come up, but that is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Yeah, man. I had to put him in there. And I will say this and Lupe Fiasco, I could almost swap in and out. But the reason this gets the higher spot is there's just more versatility to it. And it's just more of a fun listen, entertaining listen, conceptual songs, whatever. But there's an entire podcast episode review of this with my buddy Chase that you can check out. It was episode 2 because I didn't know this album was coming out. Surprise album. And I mean, this album just, it's so important to the year because this was Kendrick Lamar's year and he came out and put out this great album. This album is crazy good and fun to listen to. I keep going back to it. Yeah, motherfucking Kendrick Lamar. GNX, number 6. All right, number 5. I've also mentioned this one before as well. This is Leon by Leon Bridges. And this is a soul and R&B album. And this album is just pure smoothness and vibes. Great instrumentation that gave me Marvin Gaye vibes with like the orchestration. And his voice is gorgeous and the music is relaxing. And with the lyrics, I kind of took them and applied them to my life and interpreted them to kind of identify with elements of my life. And so because this album came out the morning after my son was born, I thought of songs like Ain't Got Nothing on You and I'm in a Peaceful Place. as songs about him. And he says things on there like, I've got something no one can take away. I'm in a peaceful place now. And of course, ain't got nothing on you. And man, so while he is probably talking about a lover or something else, I was applying it to my son. And so on a personal level, the fact that it came out the morning after my son was born, and I had this on repeat in the hospital, just holding him, listening to it. Right. Yeah, so on a personal level, this album was elevated in my rankings, and I love this album so much. And it's beautiful. Great album. Great album. Leon by Leon Bridges, number 5. All right, number 4, Shadowbox by MAVI. So I also mentioned this one in my first episode. And so this is my hip-hop album of the year. I have no other hip-hop albums, and I don't have a hip-hop album in the top 3. So this is my hip-hop album of the year. And I know people could be like, over Kendrick? Over Tyler, the Creator? Over Rapsody and Schoolboy Q? But as I said earlier, these are my top albums. And this album just spoke to me and got me. And I related to some of the lyrics he has on here as well. So I don't consider it to be the best hip-hop album of all time this year, I should say. But this one spoke to me the most, and this is the one I've been playing over and over and over again. I loved how personal it was, and the concept of wrestling with his demons, boxing his shadows, hence the title Shadowbox. And so talking about doing things he said he wouldn't, and some addiction issues, just falling into this cycle. And I like the mood of this album. I kind of call it sad boy rap. It is a little bit of that. But it is groovy and bouncy at points as well. But I would say the first part is a little bit sad boy rappy, and then it gets a little more bouncy, like Latch, the song Latch and Grindstone, get away from the moody sound with these cool jazzy beats, and he is just flowing over them. And in general, his rhyme schemes are also very complex and impressive. He has some great catchy hooks on here as well, and kind of blends singing and rapping sometimes. And it's a nice 33 minutes, so I just repeat it. Every time I listen to it, I probably listen to it twice. Yeah, I love this album. I love the vibe of it. Man, yeah, Shadowbox by MAVI, number 4. All right, number 3, No Name by Jack White. Man, Jack White from the White Stripes and the Rock on Tours and his other solo projects that he's come out with. But he came out with just a heavy, rough, and raw rock album that went back to the White Stripes sound. He's been putting out other solo albums that I've loved as well. Boarding House Reach was cool. Fear of the Dawn, Lazaretto, Entering Heaven Alive. All those albums, all really good albums. But they went more experimental and more piano songs and more instrumental, which is cool. But in this new album, he goes back to that stripped down, distorted guitar and drums, fast-paced and wailing vocal sound, drums just, cymbals just banging in your ear. Like, these riffs are crunchy and fuzzy and distorted, bluesy at times. He uses slide guitar at times, like on the song Underground, which is one of my favorites. Lots of different guitar tones and sounds, especially on his solos. So good, so good. He uses a delay pedal on Morning at Midnight, the song Morning at Midnight. So the guitar almost sounds like it is echoing. Very cool, very cool. And every song, he just has so much energy vocally. He even does this kind of fast-paced singing where it's almost rapping, like on Archbishop Harold Holmes. And lyrically, he gets snarky and sarcastic, like on it must be rough on, or it's rough on the rats, where he's essentially saying, as bad as humans have it, it sure must be tough for the rats. As bad as we have it, sure must be rough on the rats. And, he's saying as bad as humans have it, it sure must be tough for them to survive. And he says also in the lyrics, I should probably stop complaining. And honestly, those are some of the lyrics that I hear and I go, damn, I wish I wrote that. Because that is so my style of lyrics. And I'm inspired by it. That's one of my favorite songs on the album, right there. The guitar riff on that is incredible. Yeah, Rough on the Rats. Then the last track builds up to this declaration of, what's the point of freedom if I'm all alone? And he says, I thought I knew everything. So lyrically, it sounds like he is still discovering what is important in life and coming to realizations on this album. And this album is just a banger all the way through. Riffs on riffs on riffs. Incredible. The incredible guitar riffs. And yeah, I'm almost shocked that I like 2 albums more than this one. Because this was so good. And I can play this all the time. Yeah, so that's No Name by Jack White. And if you don't know Jack White, you know the White Stripes. Everybody knows the White Stripes. All right. Number 2. Had to take a sip of my margarita there. Because this album, oh man. This album means so much to me. Number 2 is Patterns and Repeat by Laura Marling. And Laura Marling is a folk singer-songwriter. She has a calming voice and a pretty lo-fi sound to her. Mostly just beautiful acoustic guitar playing with some layers of strings and keys. I loved her last album, Songs for Our Daughter, where she did have quite a bit of content about being a parent. But I didn't think as far in depth as she goes on this one. This one, she goes even more into the topic of being a parent with what is truly an ode to motherhood. Right off the bat with the first track titled Child of Mine, where she is talking about not wanting to miss the little moments, like her and her daughter, or her daughter and the father of her daughter dancing in the kitchen, enjoying those little moments. And also how you have experiences that only you and your child will have together, like on the song No One's Gonna Love You Like I Can, or Lullaby, the song Lullaby, where she is essentially singing her child to sleep with this gorgeous guitar work as well. God, that song is gorgeous. And the other part of the concept of this album is the cycle of life and the patterns of becoming parents and doing what your parents did before you, and it repeating when your children have children. And the pattern of them moving out of the house and her still imagining her child's shadows in the house, like on the song Shadows. Or even the non-parent related patterns of life, like moving on through time and life and relationships fizzling out, friendships fading in and out, and getting older and looking back on life and reminiscing about past times and relationships. And I love how the second song is called Patterns, and the second to last song is called Patterns and Repeat. Again, playing into the concept and giving these just beautiful concept, topical songs. Man, I don't know. I'm just like thinking about this album. It's amazing to me. And the whole time she's giving these gorgeous finger-picking guitar parts. Yeah, this is an amazing, gorgeous album. I literally can't listen to this album without crying. I've tried, and I have to like prep myself to listen to this album and go, okay, here we go. This is going to be an emotional roller coaster for you, Lee. Like, yeah, I gotta talk myself into it. No, but it's worth it every time. And the fact that this came out the year I had a child is just so perfect. And yeah, this album means so much to me, honestly. It really means a lot to me. And that album is Patterns and Repeat by Laura Marling. Now, I will say that it's slow. It's a little slow, and I think even my wife finds it kind of boring. But I find it gorgeous. And yeah, Patterns and Repeat by Laura Marling. All right, that was number 2. How could an album even be better than that one? I don't even know. But number 1, my number 1 album of 2024, there was no doubt in my mind. It is Dr. Dog's self-titled album, Dr. Dog. Yeah. Yep. I honestly knew it as soon as I heard it. I was like, this is my album of the year. I doubt anything's going to beat this as soon as I heard it. And so this is a great full sound with instrumentation, horns on the first song, string parts, organ, guitar, everything. It's and it's like a alternative rock, indie rock, folky kind of album. I don't even know. It's just everything I want in music. I feel like on this, especially like I said, the guitar, especially on Fat Dog. I love the guitar part on Fat Dog. So good and super groovy bass lines, great vocals, clever and meaningful lyrics, variety of types of songs and vibes. And a friend of mine asked me, "What do you like? What do you like about it? Why is it your favorite?" And I was kind of like, "Man, I don't know. Like everything." I just heard this album and went, "Yeah, this is exactly my style of music." Where you really can't nail down the genre or their sound in general. And yeah, there are powerful songs that make you feel like you want to cry, like Lost Ones or Tell Your Friends. And then fun songs like Fat Dog and Talk Is Cheap that get into a groove. And then there's songs that slow it down like Still Can't Believe and What a Night Can Do. And songs with great harmonies and vibes like Fine White Lines and the song Love Struck with M. Ward, who I'm a fan of as well. And that might be my song of the year, you know. Yeah, that and Fat Dog are my two favorite songs on this album. And it's funny because my Spotify Wrapped, if you do Spotify Wrapped, my top 5 songs that I listened to, the songs I listened to most in 2024, all 5 of them were from this album. So I'm like, okay, that figures. And yeah, I just listened to this album a bunch when my son was born, especially the song Love Struck. I kind of related it to him. And my wife and I both love this album so much and both consider it our top album of the year. We both think it's the best album of the year. And so that makes it very special to me as well. And we actually just bought tickets to see them at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. And it will be my son's first concert, except for seeing his own dad play. He's going to see his own dad play a live show, but that's just at a bar. That's not Red Rocks. Completely different. He'll have his noise-canceling headphones on, and Dr. Dog will be his first concert. Another reason this has just got to be my number one album of the year. There it is. Dr. Dog by Dr. Dog is my favorite album of the year. And it's been a great year for music. I've had so much fun starting this podcast. I really appreciate everybody listening to it and the feedback I've been getting. And please let me know if you check out any of these albums and if you like them. And, you know, I'll be back to do some more recommendations ones too. And yeah, that is my top 15 albums of the year. I truly love all these albums and feel like they all deserve shout outs. So yeah, thank you all for listening. I hope 2025 is a great year for everybody. And much love. Thanks, y'all.